everyone, and welcome to the Prismatic Poro Cup Part 2. New tune, yet same as the first. I am Bo Protroid. Joining me is JMaz, and JMaz, we had so much fun in the lower bracket just these past few days. It's now time to raise the bar a little bit with our diamond and above lobbies.
We are raising the stakes today. We have average elo is around mid-masters, 16 competitors going into a new, entirely new tournament, 2 lobby system. We'll see what happens later today. Congrats yesterday to Jaro for winning the whole event. I think they won 5 or 6 games.
Yep, 1 in 6.
They played a good bit of Malzahar. We saw a lot of Malzahar. We saw some Fast 9. We're gonna see a lot of different comps throughout today. I'm excited to see a bit more of what these higher elo players could do, how they could optimize these lines more.
And I'll say too, Jaro was talking about this in his winter interview as well, where they're also got a few friends playing in the tournament today as well. Particularly, are mentioning Zhao, who's in lobby 2. We won't be following them just yet, but again, a lot of cross pollination between these groups. We know Pineko, one of the admins here at Ohgawdevents, was talking about how they were able to run a series of scrims between both of these lobbies yesterday and the day before, I believe, and that's honestly pretty fun. We'll get a peek into how those scrims have helped him as we go into our lobby 1 of the day. But before we can talk about any kind of gameplay, I want to take a quick second to talk about the cause that we're fighting for today, which is ABS-CBN Foundation International. This is a nonprofit that's dedicated to helping Filipino communities in need, especially after the spate of horrifying natural disasters that have been hitting the islands as of late. Right now, their services are trying to do everything they can to provide aid to families, be it either food, temporary shelter, or just anything in between. We've already burst through our initial donation incentive on day 1, and when I was asleep after, 6 crazy games in a row at TFT, somehow we got an additional $80, so our new total is going to be up to 286. So over halfway to our new goal of 500. I want to see if we can raise that bar just a little bit more throughout the day.
I would love to see us raise the bar or even cross the bar past that 500 total.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a lofty goal, one that I'm sure that folks are going to be willing to lend a hand to help with, and maybe I will be willing to lend a help with that too, but we'll keep that for later on in the show. Regardless of any of that, though, now it's time for us to start looking at the gameplay that is going to be awaiting us right now. So please, James, we were talking a little bit before we started today, just to figure out kind of what to expect, all things considered. We saw a lot of Malzahar, as you mentioned, in the previous day's tournament, quite a few games of it across a bunch of different players. What do you expect to see today? Is Malzahar going to make a triumphant return, or is there going to be a few other comps sneaking their way into the gameplay?
In my opinion, the meta at the moment, there's a couple of different lines you could take. There's generally on 2-1, you either win streak or you're lose streak. If you're win streaking in a very nice spot, you'll probably either fast 8 around the items you have with the win streak, or if you have a Ginsu's, you could fast 9, or you could play Ash Crystal Ginsu's. That was a very dominant last patch. The idea of that comp is you get 5 crystal in with an Act 2 on 4-2, and it's Act 2 farm you kills, and you win the entirety of stage 2. You get all these free items and components, free things from the 5 crystal cash out, which last patch were very overvalued. I believe there was Strategist Emblem and 3 gold, which is like a gold augment worth of value. And you could get that consistently every single round. And it just put way too much pressure on your opponent.
And that's something I
We could
actually
also
want to
see some
ask you about.
Katarina, which I'm very
Oh,
excited to
yeah.
see as well.
Yeah, and really quickly, that's actually something I want to talk to you a little bit about as well, just because that was one of the things that was actually nerfed coming into the patch that players were preparing for this tournament. It wasn't a particularly hefty patch, after all, it is the Global Championships patch. Riot doesn't like really shifting around the meta too much from patch to patch when we're coming here, but really that Crystal Gambit nerf of taking down the value was pretty substantial. You think it's still going to be enough for players to pilot to victories today?
Yes, I think they nerfed the amount of kills, but they also nerfed the amount that you would get on stage 4. So what a lot of
Hmm.
people are doing is they were playing that win streak line. And let's say you weren't in the spot for or maybe you were in the spot for Fast 9. or you were in the spot for Act B, you were in the spot for Fast 9, you would win streak up to around 3-5, 3-6, and then you would throw in 3 crystal or 5 crystal and lose streak the entirety of stage 4, and you'd use your HP as a resource. And then stage 5 would roll around, or even 4, 6, and you would spend all your gold, you'd go 9, and then you'd get either your Lee Sin 2 or your Braum 2 or your TF2, and you'd stabilize. And that is very difficult to do a lot of the time. A lot of the time, you're able to make it there. You don't have enough money. So by them toning down the amount you get from Crystal, I think they nerfed it from 1.85 to 1.75.
Something like that, yeah.
It makes it a bit easier or a bit less consistent that you're always gonna be able to get that crazy catch out, super high cap fast 9 board.
Yeah, I think with
Lobby
that
is
though,
started.
yeah, I was gonna say our lobby has begun. The perspectives are loaded, and we are gonna get into our first portal of the game, which is gonna be a quick little two-star champion. And to me, that immediately screams that maybe we'll see a little bit of crew coming on in. I mean, Orbital and I have perhaps been shouting that from the rooftops all day today. And what do you know? Wired was even able to find a two-star Sivir off the back. Now, you are a much more, let's call it, connoisseur of TFT. You have seen a lot of different metas. You've gone through a lot of the mechanics here. Are you also a crew believer, or you think that it's just a little bit overhyped?
I think crew is good if you have like the Giga spot. Like if you have like Malphite 2, Sivir 2 hefty rolls, I'd play crew.
Hmm.
Or something. Or maybe you would need like maybe you build a bud build a bud one of the one cost. But I'm not going out of my way to play crew
Hmm.
this patch, if that makes sense.
I mean, that's totally respectable too, although I think you are incredibly wrong because everyone knows that while the data does agree with you, the heart more so agrees with me. So that's really the thing that I always try to look for. And by the way, if you are looking for more causes to warm the heart, you should keep looking at Ohgawdkate events in general. Kate does a great job of running a variety of competitive tournaments, not just for TFT, but for everything from Overwatch to Valorant to other incredible titles, just to give everyone a chance to compete and participate while cheering on some great causes. I believe our next tournament after this is going to be slated in January. Keep an eye out for more information coming in there. And meanwhile, we're going to get back into this game where this seems to be favoring. I don't know. I've seen a couple of Kennen boards, but this is, I think, the first time I've ever seen an exclusively Kennen board.
Well, it's the whole idea of if there's one unit I'm going to keep, it's my Kennen pair, and then maybe I keep the Kennen 2-star. Aura farming is still really good in Augment. I don't know if you go it, but it is very strong. I'm curious what the other Augment selections are.
Yeah, I think aura
I don't.
farming is always an interesting choice just because, again, it gives you a bit of direction, it gives you a pretty good call. I also think Strongest Survive, well, I was going to joke about it for being hooray, a free Kennen. This also could give that extra direction too. You already have the early Kai'Sas. It's possible you can try to go for Kai'Sa reroll, but kind of like you were talking about the crew, to me, this seems like something that really needs a lot to go right for it to go right.
I agree. I'm a little surprised by the take, but I do think 6 cannons early, and I think the idea here is Wired is not going to level, gonna try to make as much money as possible, send it on uh 3-1, 8, almost level 5, but not level 5 yet, and try to hit that cannon 3 because you're only 3 cannons off. Very feasible. You'll be able to have that be your frontline tank, and you don't have to worry about trying to find a Rammus if someone's playing Malzahar or a Darius 3. So I don't hate the idea. We have a Zaya over there with a Gamblers and a Giant Slayer Slam, which is very powerful
Yeah,
early on,
Wired
especially with
looking
10 gold saved up.
Yeah,
Oh,
Wired is
Wired.
definitely looking a
I
little
missed
bit
what Wired
more
was.
stereotypical, I think, with the start, right? Like, we were talking about this a little bit during some of our prep session here, where trying to find all these ways to build up this economy early, so that way you have the chance to make some of these choices about whether you want to go for Fast 9 or go for any kind of these reroll lines, is just usually a good choice in the early game while you try to figure things out. Also, just another quick shout out. I'm not used to seeing corner carry very much. This is a new fruit that if you haven't been playing too much TFT, it might come as a bit of a surprise to you. It gives you a little bit of extra survivability, which in this case is going to be great in terms of just trying to keep this stacking unit alive just to get that little bit of extra gold.
And we see here from Wire's opponent, there's a Shed Hero augment. In my opinion, Shed
Mhm.
Hero augment very strong. Obviously, you won't get it every game. He has the Rod open, obviously looking to make the Ginsus.
This
The
does
what that
this
does though is it makes it so, let's say Wired would consider playing Xayah normally in this spot, maybe, but with the Shen player, you probably would lean away from the Xayah, right? Because the Shen player would be contesting either your Shen, maybe even your Xayah, and your Xin Zhao. So
yeah,
the really interesting thing about a spot like this is that the other players' choices impact your choices, and not just what they do, but what they're playing.
yeah, that was the main concern that I sort of had, and I was even going to rope that back into Whisk, who, by the way, was able to hit a two-star Kai'Sa through all of that, just because, again,
Ooh,
everything you do
wow, very
here
nice.
in order to get your two costs up and running, if you see other folks going for these two cost lines, that makes it so much easier. And if you're playing something like Kai'Sa, you are going to need all the help that you can get, let alone the fact if you're playing something like the Shen or even thinking about playing Shen, and then all of a sudden, as you were talking about, you see someone else playing Twilight Assault, you know they're going to be tunnel visioning on that, and all of a sudden you have to make a choice of whether or not you want to seriously take the time to contest someone out of their hero augment, or if you would rather just take the L and decide to move on to a different composition, which, again, I'm curious to see which direction that's going to be going in here.
But I'm also intrigued. I'm curious what our two, or currently three people at 100 health. Now it's two. What their boards are looking like.
Yeah, we'll keep
Carousel
an eye
Routes
on
here.
them. Yeah, we'll have to keep an eye on them
Hineko.
so far. Not quite sure which way it's going to end up. Peneko, who, by the way, is one of the admins here, so they're going to be doing everything they can to really just boost up that Ohgawdkate name, perhaps even try to start some rigging allegations, as I'm sure that he is wont to do. But beyond all of that as well, like starting with the bow, that feels like a pretty solid option for them just to kind of get into some of those crazy attack speed situations later on in the game.
This is Thomasy. This is one of the people streaking. Currently has a Quicksilver and a belt slammed.
Mm,
I think Quicksilver. I primarily think of Akali, especially with this Aatrox 2, but maybe you slam it just because it gives the attack speed. You can kind of do whatever you want out of it. Pandora's is well, with the Pandora's take as well, you can consistently get your Naxers. So I would be very surprised here if mm, I assume Thomasy here would be angling
mm.
on a Kali spot. But again, you never know. Sitting on Soul Fighters right now in bench. We have a soul leveling Malphite here with
I'm not
Titans
sure.
and Dual Gauntlet. Those items to me scream Darius.
Mm. I was gonna say I'm not sure how much of the leveling that's gonna be happening for the Malphite. It certainly is the solo part of it. Although Wydarp was one of our players that was streaking pretty well, and this is only the first time they've lost. So 200s enter, 100 leave, nothing too crazy
Yeah.
surprise wise there. But even then, we are gonna have to sort of keep an eye on some of these other options. Tomafi, I do agree with a lot of the points that you were saying. Picking up that Quicksilver does imply that we're going to be seeing that kind of a Kali line. That said, the game may decide not to give you a Kali's, and Tomafi will have to try to adapt from that. And picking up something like the Pandora's items means that they either have the option to really force into that best in slot item line, or maybe again they just start re-rolling the Quicksilver, not really too big of a loss unless you really let it go on that item bench.
True. Akali really does need this. Akali needs Naxers, +1. Generally, the +1's Quicksilver. Because with the double Naxers, you can go auto, and then you cast. With the way the math and the mana check out. So that's why I see Pandora's, and I'd assume you would be going Akali. But you're definitely right. Anything could happen here. This is another person with a Titan slammed already, and they have Ring the Bell, which is a heavyweight augment. If you mouse over it, I believe it buffs heavyweight attack damage after 15 minutes. Not the heavyweight thing itself, the augment. That's yeah. 15 seconds your heavyweight champions gain 30% max health. So in a comp revolving around Malzahar, Darius, Jace, Poppy, all that does is make those heavyweights stronger. And you're in a great spot here. You have 4 heavyweight in. You have Kale to maybe hold item for your Malzahar.
Yeah, I
And
agree. It is just incredible to see. And I will even point out as well, like, Darius on his own can almost sort of surpass the Malzahar in some kind of weird. Surpass actually might be a little bit too high praise, but can really hold his own compared to just having that Malzahar composition. You get to see a lot of different options here, especially with the rocket grab that is, again, pulling units directly where Darius wants them right in front of him. So you really do get a lot of interesting options, and Ring the Bell will further help amp that Darius at the end of the day. One thing that I do want to make sure I call out, though, now is that Tomfee is at the top of the leaderboard now, still 100 HP. That is going to mean that they're going to be commanding a really mean streak. While meanwhile, the bottom, Peneko, 77, I don't know if they really get that full loss streak. Yes, they have. So it means that each of them have managed to manage that perfect economy going into this early game. Now that the early game is starting to switch over to the mid game, we're going to have to figure out exactly where they're going to go and how they're going to be able to command this economy forward.
yes, Peneko took calculated loss, which after every loss gives you 2 gold and a reroll. So that's why you can see Peneko has those 5 free rerolls. Also, Hazanar does not have a Ginsu. Generally from this spot, you'd either angle the Crystal Ash comp, or you'd angle a Fast 9 spot, and for Fast 9, you desperately want your Ginsus for your Twisted Fate. And not having a Rod here after 7 component drop is a little unfortunate. That being said, you will have Carousel priority. You probably will be able to get the Rod. It is important to remember that earlier we saw Peneko pick a bow off Carousel. So likely one of those bows was dropped stage 1, and the other bow was grabbed. Pan is slamming here Hod and Winner's approach, which makes sense.
Mhm.
Or protective vow. I don't hate those slams. Those are fine slams. Hod can be put on Lee Sin in the late game. And if you're angling a late game comp, you want to keep the loss streak going. Explosive growth seems very strong here.
Yeah, I agree. Explosive growth is certainly the most attractive option that I'm looking at right now. The only thing that I'm growing concerned about, though, is that Peneko is doing a great job of maintaining this loss streak, which is important for the calculated loss. They need to do everything they can to get that maximum amount of value from there, while these losses aren't exactly going to be really hurting them. They're not taking like 10, 15 damage a hit. However, now that we're starting to get a little bit deeper in, those hits are going to start getting that little bit harder. I want to see a little bit more slams here and there. I feel like Peneko is going to be taking a lot of damage, and we've seen players play on this knife's edge before. You get cut more often than not.
Yeah. It's very, very first or eighth kind of gameplay here. Uh, the plan is probably to lose 6 fights with Crystal in. I mean, that would be the ideal, right? And you would lose 3-2, 3-3, 3-5. Maybe you wouldn't lose 6 fights. Maybe you'd only lose 3. But regardless, the goal would be to keep that 10 loss streak until 4-1, and then on a 4-1 creep round, or 3-7 and 4-1 creep round, you ship it. And I'm assuming you don't. I don't know if you'd go 9 or you'd go 8. We'll see what Pan wants to do. I don't believe this is a fast 9 spot. I know Pan favors Volibear a lot. I was
Yeah.
speaking with them earlier, and they said they're a very big Volibear fan. Thomasy picked up a Volibear of their own. But as I mentioned before, Nasher slammed. You have the QSS, and you can also get a Supreme Cell spat, which is huge because that allows you to comfortably fit 4 Supreme Cell on the board. You go Kennen, Akali, Darius, and you Supreme Cell your Rise. And that allows your Akali and your Rise to get both get powered up. Because a lot of the time, if you have 4 Supreme Cells in, it just
Mhm.
makes the second one Supreme. But by giving it, and that doesn't really give you a lot of value, right? You're putting in, you have a Darius, a Kennen, and a Kaisa that are all trait buffs. But by putting in uh, a Rise with a spat, now that Rise is not a trait buff. That Rise is doing damage for you. So
Ooh,
the
I'm gonna
spat is a
cut you
huge
off.
find here
I'm gonna cut you off
from
really quickly though, just because Wired has actually picked up the forward thinking, and for me, this is always such a huge risk here, especially when you've already picked up an econ augment as your initial augment. Just because you have to do so much to get back into it, it is all or nothing. And despite that, they're still able to take down Tomafee's win streak. So quite a bit going on right there. Were you expecting that forward thinking to go? Is that the secret ingredient that makes Fast 9 work, or is there still some other thing that needs to be added to the pot?
I personally think it is. If we could look at Wired's spot, Wired has a I forgot if it was Isaiah 2 or Isaiah 1, but
I think it's
Ginsu's
Zayatus now.
GS it's Isaiah 2.
I think it was.
If it's Isaiah 2, I could see Wired streaking the entire stage and then going 9, maybe 4-5, doing the thing where
Hmm.
you splash Crystal in, maybe 3-6. I mean, if you're streaking the entire stage, you probably put Crystal on 4-1. You either lose 3 times, or you lose 6 times. I think forward thinking is a very, very, very strong augment. Maybe even a little too strong in some spots. We haven't looked at Kiari's spot. Kiari is playing Katarina here. Doesn't have over 9,000, currently has Kenai on it. So I'm curious if they will move some stuff around here. Doing a bit of a roll down to try to keep Freak alive. Currently, many cats away, but only a couple of Rakans away.
Yeah, but even then, kind of like you're talking about, she has all the kind of building blocks that she sort of wants to have. On top of that, too, this isn't the say prime artifact that think you want your Katarina to have, but that's quite a bit of extra resistances to really keep her alive longer at the end of the day. So all is feeling pretty good for Kyrie, and I won't be surprised if they're starting to look to try to get a bit of a streak here, especially which would be especially nice considering that their economy needs a little bit of time to recoup.
Just a bit of help, maybe.
A little bit of help, small
Yeah.
stimulus.
Second snack here. There is a really cool tech you can do with this comp where you oh, this is very smart. What's going on here is there's certain fruits that are tied to certain traits. So by removing all of your Battle Academia, the Battle Academia is turned off, you disable the fruit Star Student. There's a very cool tech you can do with Unstoppable, where you Unstoppable is like, they dash through and they knock things up. And if you wall off your Unstoppable Rakan and position a certain way, it will basically always dash to the back line, and it almost guarantees a wrap from Cat as long as you put Cat on the right side. Not able to see it here as we rotate into the Kaisa player from before. With and Whiskey's in a pretty nice spot. Kaisa 2.
Yeah, well, I don't
This
quite
Panic.
know how much the Kaisa has stacked at this point, but certainly in
Yeah,
the face of this Katarina, it's not going to be enough to really get things going. Itemization is fine. Number, by the way, is also good too, just one away from the Kaisa 3 already. So Whisk has to be feeling pretty good about hitting this around the time that they would hope to, I would say, in a best case scenario. But again, economically, they're also looking a little bit rough. 10 gold at least in the bank compared to Whisk's 20 going into the creep round. And they also have to contend with other folks trying to keep on keeping on. Like, say, for example, we're moving over to DARP right now. They've already managed to go for Battle Academia as well, picked up a cat of their own, probably going to be angling for those Prodigy wherever possible here. And I gotta say, this really is showing how difficult it's gonna be for some of these Battle Academia players to sort of find their hits when everyone's contesting each other.
yeah, especially because we mentioned before, Kiari was playing Katarina and he did not have the best econ. So if you're trying to find that missing piece and you really have to you have to fish for it to even hit your cat on tempo, it's going to be a little difficult. Roll down here for Wide Art, assuming you'd be looking for the Braum is a nice pickup too.
Nice.
Hits the Yumi 2, gets the Braum in. Uh, I believe you're stable enough at this. I'm curious how Paneko is doing. I thought they won their fight on 3-7. And you see Pan is kind of stabilized around this Juggernaut board. 5 Juggernauts in, 9 rerolls banked up, about 30 gold away from level 9.
Yeah, this is definitely looking like that Volibear spot that he was talking about before, where he knows it's not really one of these contested compositions. He knows there's going to be that open option here as a result. And so even though they're still taking damage, this is going to be, I believe, taking them into the 20s as a matter of fact, which a little too
Yeah.
rich for my blood. This is getting really anxiety inducing, but now I want to stay on them because if I had to guess, 4-2, not only is going to be the augment choice, it's going to be the level, and it should be the roll down to really bring the comp online. So Paneco's going to need to hit after hit after hit, augment to units to board. Let's see what that first step is with this augment, and it's prismatic.
Belt overflow is not bad. So is I mean, I'm a big Giant Mighty fan, but we'll
As
we'll
am I,
see
as
what
am I.
what Pan wants to take here. Yes, it is giant and mighty. You find your 6 Juggernaut, which is very nice, and you have 10 rolls here to try to
Fair.
find some way to stabilize. You find a Lee Sin, which is not bad. Again, this
Mhm.
Lee Sin is very strong, especially in Juggernaut, and you hit your
Fair
TF,
too.
which is which is great.
Yeah, did roll
Find a
over a
Braum.
additional bear, but that still works out pretty nicely in their favor. Brahms also coming through, as you said, not finding any of the other big hitters that you would like on that level 9 board, particularly that core of the Twisted Fate and the Zyra, but overall, still enough hits to really get things going. Just need to make some of these final slams to hopefully be able to stabilize at this point.
And slamming some items here. Hodge on the Lee Sin. TF has the Fruit Noxious trap, which, as I mentioned before, is very strong. Uh, very strong on TF and very strong on Malzahar, because TF and Malzahar hit a lot of different units all at once. However, with the items that Pan has built here, I'm surprised you keep Noxious Trap on, because red buff does burn, and Lapis Bird does shred. So, ideally, you would want to look for more of a damage fruit in that case. Thomas, in the meanwhile, mentioned before, likely going to be playing Akali, and Proto, you mentioned how what happens if you don't hit the Akali. Well, it doesn't seem like they hit their Akali. They're looking for that missing piece and can't find it.
Yeah, this
So
is especially
not the
rough to
not
kind
the
of
best
see.
spot here for Thomasy.
Yeah, Rise is doing his best Akali cosplay, but I don't think it's going to win any cosplay competitions anytime soon. There really isn't just enough stuff to really get going here, and that's going to be one of these big warning flags, right? Like, Tomafi has leveled 8, rolled to 0, knew that they were going to hit, and just weren't able to bring it over the line. Like, they have the HP for now to stick around a little while longer, but it's going to be a real question to see if they're going to be able to find a random Akali just on one of the three rerolls that come with the new turn, if there's going to be one on Carousel that they could pick up to try to stem this bleeding, because if they don't find it soon, we're just going to see loss after loss and see this loss streak grow.
Yeah, I. It's not looking the best here. Wired has before it was a Zaya 2, now it's the TF1 was the Ginsu's Giant Slayer and Golden Edge, and they have 20 gold banked up. You can see, even though they took forward thinking, even though they had no money the entirety of stage 3, they're still in a top 3 position here in stage 4.
Yeah, we'll have to take a look to see if they're going to be able to get that Akali that's currently bouncing around the stage, and they will make a beeline
They
to
pick it
it.
up.
Beyond that, as well, another important thing to note: Benso, who was our lobby leader, still is the lobby leader, but lost the win streak. Couldn't quite see who that was against, but that does mean that they're going to have a little bit less of an economic sway over the rest of the lobby. They're not going to be able to dictate when everyone else is going to roll. It might prune the pressure down just a tiny bit on everyone else. I also want to take a look back here at Whisk to see where this board is now at, because this is a Kaisa that is fully online. The Radiant Blue buff, I know folks heard me sing its praises yesterday, but I'll say it again, synergizes incredibly nicely both with Attack Expert as well as the natural stacks that the Kaisa gets here at this point. So let's look at that ability, see what that final number is. It should be
Yes,
pretty
I'm
high if we
intrigued.
want to see that final go of it here. It's on the ability,
That
so
ability, it's
hopefully
a
it'll work
Cosmic
out.
Rain.
Hmm.
Um, it's the one that's stacked. I'm curious what it's stacked at. And you can see Pan has now hit the Braum too. So I would be very surprised if Kaisa does pull this one out. TF is down. But I don't know if it's enough. Ooh.
That's interesting.
Oh, it was close. It was close, but Pan was able to take it there. Pan again does have 0 money, so they're probably rolling every round for that TF2 or that Lee Sin 2. The Wisp drops to second to last place. Thomasy is still going with the Akali against the Katarina and barely edges it out. Also has an Akali in their shop.
Yeah, they have finally managed to move things around, have finally managed to really get things going. But again, Akali 1 is going to be good for stage 4, but it's also good for the start of stage 4. You really want to get that Akali 2 by now. And even though this has begun to turn things around, it is still going to be a little bit tighter than I think they would really like coming into some of these fights. So hopefully they'll get a couple of more easy ones here, there, anywhere. But for now, it's going to really come down to some of these positioning puzzles that Akali players really revel in. Taking a look against Basea, who is one of our top players coming in here. I believe she actually won the PAL's Palace Chalice 6 just a couple of weeks ago. So she's already coming in here with some big tournament experience, knows how to deal with a bunch of these opportunities, and is now playing this Malzahar line that we already warned is going to be a pretty popular pick for many of these options. And we also get to see how it sort of plays against that Akali, where usually if you're able to position it well, there is more time for that dot to stack and more chances for her to get taken down. Not quite enough time this time around. It is still just a Malzahar 2 after all, but there's still another Malzahar 2 on the bench and plenty of gold in reserve to try to roll for that 3-star.
Does just hit the Poppy 2 there as well, which is a huge upgrade. Again, they have a Darius 2 and only one Darius on bench. So we have a Kaisa player in the lobby. We have an Akali player in the lobby. So all of those other players are taking Dariuses out of the pool. And honestly, after you hit this Malzahar 3, you might just push 8 and try to get a Seraphine or a Yuumi in and play around the Malzahar. It depends how many Dariuses you can find on your roll down for this Malzahar. But I wouldn't be
Yeah.
surprised if you don't skip it all the way.
Yeah, no surprises there. By the way, that last anvil comes in clutch, gives that last best in slot item over to Basea, so I'm sure she's happy about that. Actually going to level up to 8 to get
Yeah,
in
she
a bit
pushes
more
8.
power just before they even try to roll for the mouse. Makes sense. You still got 32% odds for free cost. Might as well get a bit more power. And this Akali is going to do pretty good work onto the Darius that I was talking about earlier, right? Darius does a lot of work on his own in this comp, and even though he is still just a 2-star, expect to see some pretty crazy damage coming out from him, particularly against these frontline units that Mouse might otherwise struggle with.
I think the big MVP here is going to be the Poppy, though. This Poppy has so much health.
Oh, Jesus, gone.
However, the Seraphine snipes the Mal's in the back, the Mal's 2, and it's just Darius and Poppy against the rest of the board.
I mean, the mouse dot
Can
is
they
still
kill the
ticking and
Darius?
bouncing around, so take a look at that. It means that Darius in the back line is able to get off a shot. Not
Yeah.
going to be enough, but Ride scares the crap out of me there.
Can we see if Ride has oh, you do have Noctis Trap on TF? Wow, it just wasn't enough. Oh, it's still a TF1. So that alone wasn't enough to be able to seal the deal. You find
Well, there's
Yone 2,
TF2.
and there's a TF2. Ride's in a great spot here. If we look at Pan's streaking. So again, Pan Calc lost most of stage, or all of stage 2, most of stage 3, and I think hasn't lost a fight since 4-1 or 4-2.
Yeah, we'll take a look
Into
at
a
Pan in
tiny
a
but
little
deadly
bit. Just
Katarina here.
Yeah, we'll take a look at Pan in just a little bit. For now, though, let's stick on Ride a little bit longer to see how they're going to fare with this TF2, and also a bit of a window to see how Kyrie is doing, as you said, on this Katarina. Has been leveled up here, but look at the damage that comes out from that Seraphine. Being able to guarantee the mage is strong, but being able to guarantee the final shots and resistances is stronger. Ride takes the hit right there. That is going to be 2 rounds in a row where they're just shy of taking the win.
Falling to second. Our Zinzao and Chen reroller here with Twilight Assault hit a Flicker Blaze, which is an insane high roll in that comp. But they're currently in last place. They need a fight win here to not go A.
Yeah,
Hopefully they can outposition the Akalis and the Katarinas in the lobby. This positioning is actually an anti-Akali positioning, I believe. But we go into Pan, who is the streaker here. Lee Sin 2, TF2. Not looking the best for...
Yeah, Liquor Blades aren't really enough here just to get things going. Pineko really serving as the Grim Reaper, and the Grim Reaper has a posse this time around with a huge fluff of Poros just wagging around them, so that is going to be pretty cute to see. Pan, as you said, was in a pretty rough spot early on in this tourney, but now has managed to find a way back in, has fully managed to two-star most of their 5-cost lineup, and really play this top-tier Bill Gates board that we've seen time and time again, set and set again in TFT.
And it just goes to show how important it is to use your health as a resource, whether that be win streaking early and using your health to kind of trickle down and get that crystalline on stage 4, fast 9 on 5, or win streak all of stage 4 with that health total, play at a full tempo, and then use your health total to get a fourth or a fifth and get good placements that way.
Yeah, for
Being
now
able
though, we
to
got to
use your health as a resource is so vital.
for now though we have to shift our attention back down to Whisk, who is our new unenviable position of being at the bottom of the leaderboard, unenviable position of having to deal with Pineko in their pool. They've done their best to try to really make this comp sing, and I've seen a lot of folks theory crafting, trying to see, now that we've seen some of the meta shift from this patch, if there is a way for the Kai'Sa to work. It still requires so much work to set up in the first place, though, and what do you know? It's going to be not Pineko, but Ride who's going to come on in with this own high tier level 9 board. Take a look at all this damage coming on through. Twisted Fate is able to get some of these early stacks, but it's going to be the Seraphine stacking in the back line. Ball 1 comes out, kills the
Ooh.
Kai'Sa. Ball 2 comes and follows, takes the KO. Whisk goes down. There's nothing left but a cutscene.
Whisk ends up in 7th there. We're now moving over to White Art Prodigy Leona board. They are currently at 1 HP, hanging on by a thread. If they do win this fight, there's a likely chance they'll be able to squeak out with a fifth. Not a horrible position. You have the Leona 2, you have the Yumi 2. You are stuck on Seraphine 1, though. So,
There's just so many
against those
threats.
Seraphine 2s, those TF2s, it's going to be difficult. I think your best chance would be out-positioning the Akali or the Katarina that are lurking around in the board.
There's just so
You
many threats here, and they managed to roll Pineko at the end of the day. So, again, the cat is able to do some fantastic stuff, but look at everything that Pineko's moving down. Despite the fact the cat has true damage at her disposal, it's just not able to even bleed
It's
through
not even
any of
close.
these units. So Pineko just says goodbye. We watch another cutscene. Look at the sideboards there. Tomathy is able to survive. Basaya goes down to 1 HP and a dream. That's going to be pretty rough to see that they haven't been able to find the Malzahar on their own yet, although a Seraphine of their own has managed to come on through for the extra Prodigy boost. This is looking a little bit terrifying when you consider that both Ride and Pineko, top 1, top 2 of this lobby, are now just trying to find ways to carve up the remaining players.
Yes. If you're okay here, you'd be happy with a third or a. I mean, you'd be very happy with a third. You'd be happy with a fourth. However, it is important to remember that White Upper's playing Prodigy, and now those Malzahars are back in the pool. TOS Wick was playing, or Wisp was playing Kai'Sa. Now those Dariuses are back in the pool. So you have 82 gold here to try to roll down and find some heavyweights and really cap this Prodigy heavyweight board.
Let's see what these initial rolls do.
One
So far,
mouse
just
away
one
here.
mouse.
And you hit it. That puts you 2 Dariuses away. 1 Darius away. Darius 3 is a big upgrade.
Yeah, not the one you're looking for at the end of the day here. Basaya is going to have to pray they don't go into Ride, and they are going to get a bit of respite coming into Kyrie. But again, remember, that positioning on the Katarina is huge. The Unstoppable that you called out earlier also helps build a bridge down to the Malzahar should she opt to take it. So far, she's just pinging back forth across the front line, getting a bit of a reprieve for Basaya. She's nowhere near the Malz, trying to work her way back. Now she has to face this extra dot climbing in on her, but it might be too late. She's able to
Yeah.
find her mark. Basaya goes down. Ride takes a bit of surprise damage, but Tomathy is the one that goes down first. We have our top 4. Pineko at the top, streaking as we go into stage 6.
Oh, and some free money from Twisted Fate here. Ride goes 10 with 6 Bastion in. You have your Seraphine 2, your TF2, your Braum 2. I will say that was not the unstoppable positioning that I was suggesting. There is one, maybe we'll see it at some point. Regardless, you find the Zyra, uh, no items on her, but now it's just can we beat this Katarina board? And PF is not being targeted, which is very nice. You have maybe Seraphine getting caught by the Katarina. But honestly, this artifact on Katarina is doing so much value. The reason why it was not able to die the entirety of that heavyweight fight is because of the artifact. But here it's looking different. Katarina's down, and it's looking like a win for Ride.
Yeah, Ride is able to
Tiari
do.
walked away with a third place.
Yeah, Ride was able to do exactly what they were looking to do here, find that last level, but it might be all for naught. They've been able to construct their own powerful version of Fast 9, now Fast 10, to get off the ground. But Pineko has been here longer, has been stacking up Poros every second of the day. If you see them actually, yeah, Pineko comes over to scout. They come on in, they do a little hop, they run back away. So that's going to be a tricky thing for Ride to come up with, especially when they don't really have any Poros of their own to really blunt the damage, at least not enough to blunt the potential damage that comes in from a full board.
I'm curious how many rounds in a row Pan Echo has won.
Yeah, we'll
If we
see
could
in
click on
just
their POV.
we'll see in just a second. 11 is
11
certainly a
round win
terrifying
streak.
way to cap
Wow.
things out. And we even get to see that additional damage coming on through. They did switch over to the ramping rage to
Oh,
give their TF more damage. And honestly, these initial bursts are too much to handle. It will come down to where these Seraphine Mage Blasts are landing, but they don't hit anything meaningful here. The TF is stacked too high, and Ride is going down. That means that Pineko, off of this streak, 12 in a row, at least 24 Poros to his name, is going to be taking the first game of the Prismatic Poro Cup. Hello and welcome back to now game 2 of the Prismatic Poro Cup, brought to you by Ohgawdkate Events. I'm still ProTrade, that's still JMaz. JMaz, we had some pretty crazy stuff happening in that game, but a few other things were going on behind the scenes. Can you tell me about that?
behind the scenes, we got another $5. We're at 291 out of 500 now, only $9 away from the $300 threshold, and one step closer to that $500 goal that we have set for this weekend.
Again, like it is still so incredibly humbling that we're able to hit that 200 goal on day one. To now be trying to shoot for this new star is absolutely incredible. So once again, thank you so much to everyone who has donated so far. If you haven't been able to donate yet, no sweat. We know that everyone's situation is different, and even just watching the game, bumping up the viewer numbers on Twitch so other folks lean their heads and go, what's going on here? Is this some TFT and charity combined? That's incredible. So we'll be able to work with that as time goes on. But now we have to move from lobby 1 to lobby 2 and see how they're going to do coming on through this game.
I'm really interested to see if this lobby has a similar cadence to last lobby. A lot of Fact 9, a lot of reroll, or if we see something else in this lobby.
Yeah, and looking at some of the history here, I'm trying to load up the diamond and above records right now. It seems like Ewick was able to take away. Oh no, excuse me. There were the lobby there. Excuse me. Kiko was the player who was able to take the win. Still waiting to double check to see where their final comp was to figure out where that's going on in that lobby. But they're going to be coming in with a little bit more pressure here because they got that momentum behind them.
Momentum is a huge thing in TFT as well, right? You have those 8 points, you can think, all right, maybe now I can play more for seconds, thirds, fourths, fifths, and coast my way to that top cut. You're not as you can play for something different. You can go into the game with a different lens.
Yeah, for sure. And beyond that, too, I do need to call out Zhao one more time. This is Jaro Jaro's friends. They play a lot together. However, they just found themselves on opposite sides of the Ohgawdkate split here between low and high. And as a result, they're now looking to see if they're able to carry things on through. Respectable middle of the pack finish in game one. Nothing crazy to write home about, but enough for them to get us a good middle of the pack meat shot to try to go for those qualifications later on. Remember, it's great to get that first if you are able, but if not, being able to finish consistently to break that top 4 threshold to get into day 2 is just as equally as good. The points are going to reset no matter what.
We're getting into the game here. Jarvan, which is extra carousels, which this kind of does two things. It means that generally there's one of each item on the carousel, but if the carousels are bigger, maybe you have two or three of each item. So normally you really only get that item. You're guaranteed to get it if you're bottom two. Maybe if you're bottom four, you can consistently get that item that you want. And if you're top four, you wouldn't. You're not as desperate to find something that you really need.
Yeah, that's the main thing that I like looking at in this portal because it really disincentivizes loss streaking to a higher degree. Because, as you said, there's more units on the board, there are more items on those units. There's a higher chance that you're able to find your stuff if you're going for a win streak here. So, definitely going to be curious to see if that's going to impact the way that these players are looking to make these advancements here. But for now, just going to be a pretty solid stage one. Hold the pairs that you like throughout the ones that you don't. Kiko, for
Hmm.
now, starting with some of these bastions, but again, it's so early that we can't even really read into this being a crazy full Star Guardian line or something like that.
Not able to hit anything 2-star here for Kiko, but you do have a Shen and Rel, so you do have at least two Bastion. We saw Bastion Fast 9 last game. You have Bastions, you have an R. Maybe you consider something along those lines again. However, again, you really want to play that out of a win streak spot. I'm curious what everybody else has at this moment.
Yeah, we'll check a look at that as we go through some of the augments. Or actually, this is an important one to take a look at. We already see Bassi managing to hit some of this early Battle Academia, and this is huge because remember, Garen is able to stack up, is only able to do so if Battle Academia is active. So, important thing to keep in mind there. Furthermore, we get a gold augment start, so nothing too crazy in that long run, but Bassi picking the heroic grab bag. I don't know. I see Heroic Grab Bag. I see Battle Academia be sold. I think that means we're gonna try to see something in that free cost line.
Yeah, this is looking like you're selling your Battle Academia. You're selling the Kale as well. You have the heavyweights in. It's looking like it's going to be a Mal's angle, and from this spot, I don't hate it. You have a solid front line. You have okay back line. You're making econ. It seems pretty fine.
Yeah, I'm always personally nervous picking up these dupes just because while they do help guarantee it if it's going to be contested, and let's be clear, Malzahar is likely going to be contested. It's been in many of the games that we've casted so far across the past couple days that I've seen in my personal rank games. I don't know about you. From there, we'll have to see exactly how Bassi is going to be able to look to pilot this. And by the way, moving over to Zhao over there, it seems like they've already started things out with that Crystal Gambit. So definitely looking to guarantee that loss streak, build up that econ early.
Again, loss streaking is never a bad thing in a spot like this. All you have is the 2-star Malphite. You didn't really have a good tank item plan. Uh, Yao was looked at his situation and decided to put in Crystal and try to make some money and get something out of these losses as opposed to just bleeding health.
Yeah,
Does
the
pick a
only
Mesriel 2 here, though. Curious if they will opt for it. Maybe they'll even try to make 20. Some decisions to make.
my personal guess is that it's going to be a shot to make 20 just because you want to go in and get that Crystal Gambit of stacking. The only concern that I have with that, though, is the fact that we already saw Zhao take a lot of damage there, right? 94 HP is pretty much the worst you could do in a gold augment lobby, ignoring things like Silver Spoon or any of the other crazy prismatic augments that might be able to bring you up to a higher unit loss. Now going into another person who has pre-leveled up to 4, it's already looking like Zhao is going to be taking a ton of damage here. And I'm not quite sure if that's going to be enough for them to kind of come back from.
Yeah, Stoke just hit him for another 6 damage. And you can see that Stoke has the Ezreal 2 and the Garen and the Rel. So maybe when Zhao was scouting, he saw that Stoke had those items or those units in and decided against it.
Yeah, switching gears one more time over to Stoke. And honestly, I think this is a pretty good standard board for TFT, right? You have your initial Prodigy, you have your initial Bastion, works together nicely, has a quick little opening round at level 5 to go put in that other Battle Academia to get the Ezreal stacking. This is one of these classic Stage 2 boards.
Yes, and Spoils of War is very nice in this spot because you are playing for a win streak. Another person here, ASAP has the Ezreal 2 with a Supreme Cell emblem. So I'm curious to see what he does with that.
I really am surprised by the number of of Supreme Cell fans, let's call them, kind of in this tournament so far. Because as you were talking about, it isn't something that is as crazy, kind of comparatively. It's still something that sees some play, but hasn't really lately. Between again, Kaisa being nerfed pretty well below where her glory days were. Same thing with Akali. All in all, though, it seems like this is something that folks are willing to explore, if not even contest each other a little bit in ways that I really didn't expect going into today.
Very surprised to see that. The carousel does come out, and this is what I was talking about, where there's 4 rods in this carousel, but only 1 bow. So
Mm.
maybe somebody was really banking on that bow, maybe Fifth or PJ, and lo and behold, they weren't able to get the bow because there's only 1 of them, which is just unfortunate.
Yeah, that's always going to be a rough thing to have to deal with. Oh, speaking of that, by the way, Ewick here, they've managed to go
Eric,
into Eric, excuse me. They've managed to go into give him the chair Mundo, so that's going to be a pretty scary option here. And they were even able to get body change off the back of it as well. Remember, if you have your Mundo on the bench when you fruit him, it guarantees the tank Mundo power ups as opposed to the carry Mundo power up. So while body change isn't the best in class option, it still does quite enough to get Mundo up and rolling.
yes, and it seems like because Eric's not slaying anything, or only has against Zeus Flame, you might try to win this one. But I would assume you're just you go for a 5 loss, you make some econ, and then you stabilize on 3-2. As for
I don't
PJ,
know.
PJ is in a very nice spot with Taisa with the Helm of Demacia, which again make whichever unit is holding it very strong,
Ooh.
barely able to take out Eric there. What a nail biter, and is a tier away from having a great item set on Kaisa, good econ, and just an overall very pleasant spot.
I was really scared there, but at the end of the day, everyone got what they wanted there. Eric got another loss. PJ got another win. Everyone wins. That feels pretty good.
What else could you ask for?
Hmm. And by the way, you were talking about this helm kind of coming in here. I know this is something that kind of intimidates a lot of players just because, again, losing a unit to lose the entire match is a scary thing. But to me, it seems like this is one of these optimal choices on the Kaisa, especially paired with over 9,000. What are you thinking whenever you slam this Augment?
If I see Helm, I've used Helm a good bit in again comps like this one where you have a lot of front line of that one backliner, whether it be a Kale or a Kog'Maw or an Ash or in this case a Kaisa. It's basically in a situation where if this carry were to die, the fight would be lost anyways, right? If this Kaisa is dead, my four juggernauts on my front line aren't gonna put in enough work. Crazy fight, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Um, so you you're comfortable, you're okay saying I'm gonna gamble this entire fight on this helm. The only scenario becomes an issue is you're getting those Akalis or those Katarinas, and they're able to get on the back line really quick. Then it becomes a serious headache.
By the way, just taking a peek here, there, and everywhere, Kiko was able to find Malzahar. Furthermore, have the double trouble. This is one of these new top tier options for a
Ooh.
Malzahar comp. Gives you all the same Shadow Clone benefits that Malzahar had back in the day. Now, just off the back of a free Malzahar. That said, as I know Basea could tell us in Lobby 1, it is hard to hit that Malzahar free in the first place. So something that Kiko will have to keep in mind. Beyond Kiko as well, we also see Demi at the very top here. Asif has been able to hit that full streak coming into here off the back of that Ezreal, and they're able to start warping the economy of the lobby, right? With that 5 game loss streak, they're one under the full threshold for that econ. But from here, are now able to really start building in that extra economy, pumping into levels, starting to look for the Akali that is obviously being built toward, by the way, off those items that we see. And that means it's going to be them setting the tempo for the rest of the lobby.
Yeah, so you're seeing some slams here. Again, you can't make that second Nashers, so you're putting items wherever you can. And we roll into Jiao, who had Crystal in. They had Crystal in earlier, if you remember. We were pondering if they were going to take the Ezreal 2 or not, and decided to keep the Crystal in. As for their item, a big mixed bag of everything. Nothing slammed yet. Could go Ash, could go something else. It all depends. They took Econ first augment, so I'm very interested to see what they take second augment here. Because if they get a forward thinking here, like we saw last game, it could be a fast 9 situation.
Yeah, definitely something to keep in mind, and we'll have to see exactly where we're going to go. And it's going to be gold into gold here. As you were talking about econ and tcon, it starts to get a little bit nerve-wracking for me as well. Sure, it's going to be pushing you more towards that fast 9 composition that we already saw be successful in lobby 1. The downside though is that you need to still hit when you're given all that economic power, and if you do not, you're sort of left with nothing to show for it at the end of the day. So 2 economic options followed by 1 damaging option with that water lotus currently being offered right now to Zhao. We'll have to see exactly where they end up with it.
They do end up taking Epoch, which I agree. I think Epoch is a good take here. You have 4 crystal. You're probably looking for that act. You're probably looking to play 5 crystal this game. I don't believe you have the money to play a fast 9 spot here. You're probably going to play crystal ash and hope you can pull out a top 4, maybe like a second or a third. Slamming Kraken here for that act. We're currently fighting Stoke, who has this Ezreal, looking to have a nice little Yumi spot. They did take Pandora's items. Look at the amount of gold that Spoils is generating here. Oh,
Yeah, I gotta
wow.
say,
And they have
that's
the
been.
Leona.
Yeah, I gotta say, Spoils has been absolutely insane this fight so far, coming in for excuse me, Stoke. Just because whenever I see this picked up as a choice, especially at this gold level, it doesn't really seem to do anything. Like it gets outscaled pretty quickly. But as you called out, they're able to get econ after econ after econ from each of these fights. It must feel pretty good that they're even willing to go for that second econ with the Pandora's items as well.
Yes. Yes. And the Pandora's items allows you to get your 3 true tank items on your Leona, your 3 damage items on your Yumi, your Shred and your Thunder on your Malzahar. It really gets lets you get your bits. And in a position where you have the money that you need from Spoils of War, I really like the Pandora's item take. We mentioned forward thinking earlier. Demi, who was streaking, took forward thinking.
Is no longer streaking to show for it as well. And I think at
Yeah.
that point, that makes a lot of sense, right? Like you took something that isn't giving you any kind of real power. That's pretty much the sign that you are going to start shifting into a lost streak. That's totally okay though, right? There's going to be a couple of rounds we're not going to be able to really hit anything too crazy. And they also have to recognize too, they were win streaking quite a bit. They weren't exactly spending too aggressively, so they knew they were going to be outclassed sooner rather than later. So why not make it sooner? Why not make it in stage 3 before some of these crazy reroll compositions are able to really come online at the start of stage 4, and instead get a stage 4 power psych alongside them in order to really bring down the hammer, really try to stake your claim back into a second win streak after these losses make their way through. For now, though, looking at the rest of the lobby, it seems like we are seeing a bit of a gap between first and eighth, but that's really the only place where it seems to stick. Everyone else is pretty much staying pretty comfortably in those low 80s, high 70s.
I will say that speaking of that 8th place, another interesting thing with this portal is it increases the odds of you getting that Swain on 3 or that Ash on 4 to get Crystal. So Zhao was actually able to get the Ash and now has 5 Crystal in and is looking to start making some free items, free resources. However, you really do need that Ash too. It might be enough against this Mundo Hero augment. Let's see if Eric can pull it out.
I mean, I'm not sure personally. This is a Mundo 2. Look at how quickly it's already starting to shred through some of these units and already triggering up the Scasante so early. There's not going to be that much that Zhao can really do. So Eric certainly continuing this march on forward. Doesn't have as many Mundos as I think they would like to have at this stage of the game, 3-5. I think you would like to have at least that full 6, and right now you're only sitting at the 4 overall. I'm sorry, I paused for a second because I was hoping I was going to do a caster blessing right there and cause a couple to show up in the shop, but wasn't quite in the cards this time around. But either which way, this is still certainly going to be good for them in the meantime. We're just starting to hit these thresholds where these players are expected to make tempo and hit these things, and Eric doesn't seem to be as close as at least I would want to be.
However, Eric does have to be happy because he's won 4 of these fights and is 1 win away from having a complete streak, which you get that extra 3, 4 gold going into the PvE round. So Fruit here goes on the Vi and going to position on the other corner, trying to get this final fight win against PJ. PJ is currently in first with that Kaisa, but you can look at the items. The items are different now. You have Ginsu's and Helm of Demacia,
I gotta say, that's
or
really
Ginsu's and,
interesting.
Collector.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's really interesting because collector, I get it. You don't really need to have as crazy stuff with the IE coming in where you get some of that crit, but over 9,000 doesn't seem like it's stacking in the way that would make me feel comfortable moving away from some of those items. I'm not quite sure how you're kind of thinking with that.
Well, PJ has rolled a lot of gold and is still on Kaisa 1. Finally hits the Kaisa 2, but very late compared to when you'd want to hit the Kaisa 2. And if you look, they're actually sitting on 2 Lulus. So you can think maybe here we're going to pivot into Smolder. We're not going to stay in this Kaisa. Maybe that's why we're holding the Lulus. I don't know.
I could see that as well.
I
Also important to remember that the OK, the Rammus, is also one of these good options to throw into a Kai'Sa composition as well. So it does work out pretty well at the end of the day, whichever direction they go. And although certainly agree, these items are starting to really stack up more in a smolderly direction.
Yeah, you have great items here for Darius and for Smolder. Reforged and got a cloak. I would not hate pivoting this to either Smolder or somebody else. However, we will see what PJ wants to do.
For now, though, things are looking pretty solid. I was a little bit upset looking at the over 9,000 stacks, but that's just kind of the way that over 9,000 has a tendency to work, right? Like every now and then you get a lot of AD, you get a lot of attack speed. Other times your backline carry has an extra 100 HP, which again is okay for survivability if you're going against a Katarina, but not exactly the thing you're really looking for to help snowball into the game.
Yeah, you'd really want to be able to blow up that Katarina ASAP. We see from the gold orb earlier, Stoke got a gold dupe and a lesser dupe, or I believe maybe just the gold dupe, which is very nice to be able to stabilize on 8. There's a college running around. There are these reroll comps running around, and making sure you're able to hit those 2-star forecasts, that 2-star Yumi, that 2-star Leona, becomes a lot easier with a gold dupe.
Yeah, having that extra in the pocket is always going to be useful. Let's take a look what this final augment, though, is going to have to say about that. And it's going to say, I want to be prismatic. This is actually pretty interesting because I felt like yesterday we had prismatic after prismatic, orbs to augments to traits just all over the place. Here, it's actually been pretty reserved, all things considered. So, very nice, I would say, for Mr. Mortdog himself to kind of calm things down versus how crazy things got yesterday, all things told, but can't exactly stay away from everything. Closing game 2 out for Prismatic seems like a great way to go.
Oh wow, that's a huge Seraphine hit for Stoke here. You could realistically get Seraphine too. I'm curious if they decide to do that here.
I mean, oh, they do actually have that second Seraphine. Missed that completely on the
Yeah,
bench,
and
so
they have gold dupe.
I wouldn't be
I imagine the
surprised
Yumi
by that.
instead.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised by that at all. The only thing that I want to watch and be careful about is some of this itemization. They decide to hold that Radiant item on their bench for now, which I get it. They want to try to see if they can maximize the power that's going to kind of come in from the Seraphine once it hits 2-star. But if they hold on to it too long, they're going to be burning and bleeding health. So much so now that especially folks like Stoke have managed to find that Ash 2 that you were talking about and really begin to come into their own.
Yeah, and they also found the crystal emblem off of the circlet and the Zyra,
Mm.
which means they have 7 crystal. Which a lot of the time you didn't really need the 7 crystal, but in a scenario like this where you have emblem, you have your Ash 2, you're at 40 gold, level 8, you're in a great spot here to snowball and get a lot of free resources. It also gives you some combat power because we took econ augment, econ augment.
Yeah, that
So
does
it does 2
feel
things.
pretty relaxed that you're going to have a trait that's able to work things through. As you said, you're not going to have cash outs that are really worth another gold augment anymore, so no more crazy Stratus emblem back to back to back. However, this is now looking incredibly terrifying. Rocket Grab is even a bit of icing on the cake for this Cassante, just to make sure there is even more to stall things out here, even more to really allow the Ash to get stacking up.
And we rotate into Basie, who is a very solid Malzahar spot, has the Malzahar too, has the Darius too, and the dots are putting in a lot of work, but is it enough against this Ash? It will be. That's a big hit for Basie, who
Yeah,
is looking a little rough on the money.
I
As
gotta
we go
say,
around here,
I mean, I was just gonna say quickly, like the amount of HP, the amount of stats that you really get off of that 7 Crystal Gambit is just so useful. Is able to really give you that combat power that, as you said, is missing right now. They're really trying to build up everything they can off the back of all of these cash outs that they're finding, as well as just these random fortunate Crystal Gambit units that appear on the carousel. Look at them make the beeline over to that Zyra, trying to find a Zyra 2 as
yeah.
quickly as possible.
And it didn't matter. It doesn't matter what that item is, right? You're picking that Zyra every time, just like how last carousel it didn't matter what the Ash had. If the Ash had a bow, it was my lucky day. But if the Ash, whatever the Ash had, you're still taking it because hitting that break point is so vital.
For now, though,
As for
Carousel is going to
the rest
come
of the
to a
lobby,
close, and despite the fact that we see a gap beginning to form with Eric at the top, we still have plenty of TFT left to play. And oh my goodness, I gotta say, like so far we haven't seen like the top cap fruits coming in for Mundo, but every time you come over to Eric's Ford, they have a different Mundo power up, and each of them are interesting in their own unique ways. Like I really love standalone here because yeah, Mundo's standing alone just in the back line instead of the front line where you're usually used to seeing him.
his casts also scale off of his HP. So by having standalone, it not only does it make Mundo tankier against this Akali, but it also increases the damage of the tear throw. So it serves double duty here, or even triple duty, because the standalone, which is normally a drawback, isn't even a drawback.
Yeah, we'll have to see exactly where these chairs are going to land. And I got to say, usually whenever you see the Akali get onto the backliner early, it's a bit of a death sentence. But Mundo has the HP, has the extra bit of a cleanse coming in from the Luchador jump. So all that kind of really works in his favor to go where he pleases, as Mundo is wont to do. Meanwhile, let's switch things back over to Kiko, who has been going deeper and deeper into this double treble Malzahar, was able to find 6 overall, which is enough to activate the trait, just not to activate that 3-star version that everyone is going to be keeping an eye out for in this lobby. So far, though, it seems like it hasn't quite managed to work out for them just yet, haven't really been able to come online, and now staying above the 80 gold threshold off the back of their Prismatic Augment.
Yes, it is very important that generally in these 3-cost reroll lines, you really want to have your 3 stars by stage 5, like 5-1, 5-2. So Kiko is on tempo here, even though this fight might be a little rough. This Xayah 3 is going to be doing a lot of damage.
Yeah,
You're still not super upset about the spot.
I mean, I agree with the theory behind the tempo, right? Like, whenever we're talking about that kind of perfect game of TFT, 5-1, 5-2, that is when this should come online. But there's also the fact that, like we were talking about earlier, all of these players are shifting what tempo really means in this lobby, right? You have Eric streaking at the very top, getting so much gold injected into them. All of a sudden, they're saying, hey, the tempo's faster now. You have to level unless you want to play the Eric tax right now. Zhao in the bottom of the leaderboard is saying the same thing. Yes, they took a bit of a hit there, which is certainly a little nerve wracking if they're them. But at the same time, hey, listen, I've hit my Crystal Gambit. You're gonna have to really catch up with me or try to surpass me, or else you're gonna play the Zhao task. So even though we already have a pretty good spot for Kiko, the fact that they're already at 23 HP, I'm afraid nullifies it a little bit.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I mean, you could think Hiko at that 2 life, at that 1 life threshold, all it takes is one unlucky roll into the strongest person in the lobby, and any chance of you having like winning, let alone top 4 in the lobby, completely goes out the window. So that's where playing on that razor's edge is very threatening. But comps like those, like Double Trouble Malzahar, like Crystal Gambit Cash Out, those are the comps that have that high win rate. So with the risk comes reward.
Completely agree here, and it seems like it should be enough to kind of keep them going for now. They are going to be heading up against this Kaisa reroll that we were talking about earlier, which, don't get me wrong, is incredibly strong with the Bastions. However, it seems like once the Ash is online, yet thrown about by the Braum, that will make things a little bit riskier. Again, Zhao still winning these fights, but ever so much by the skin of their teeth.
That was a huge Edge of Night diff. The Ash was about to die, Edge of Night procced, and Ash was able to scurry on out of there and do the last little bit of damage and clean up the rest of the fight. Which Zhao just moved Edge of Night over on that stage on 5-1. So every little play, every little item slam makes a difference in a situation like this one.
Yeah, really
You
curious
might
to
be
see
thinking,
how.
what is this doing here? What's this positioning? It's an anti-Akali positioning. If Akali is on top of the Braum, it's going to target the Jinx because Jinx is the furthest unit away.
Yes, but for
See what
now, there
happens.
isn't going to be an Akali just yet. Instead, you have plenty of range between you and Bassie's Malzahar. Remember, that's the thing that we were talking about before about being able to hit and contest off the back of the extra lesser Nikos that you're able to get from that augment. So that's why part of the reason why Bassi was able to hit all that first. That said, it's not going to be enough off the back of the uncontested side of things with this Zaya Bastion reroll that we've been seeing Fist piloting here and there. But look at the bottom of the leaderboard. PJ and Zhao going down 7th and 8th place, reversed respectively. So that is absolutely insane.
Very unfortunate for PJ and Zhao. We're looking at Go was able to hit the Rammus 3, but still very far away from this Mouse of the Darius. Needs a couple copies of each. There is still one other Mouse player left in the lobby who was able to hit the Mouse 3.
Yeah,
However,
again, that
you
makes
don't
it.
have the Zaya.
Yeah, it'll make it tricky to hit, and I'm not quite sure if the double trouble is going to be enough to really be able to contest. But hey, the Rammus is an excellent consolation prize, should have quite a bit of time to really stall things out, and he's completely gone before I even finish my sentence. Kiko takes a huge amount of damage, enough to fully get knocked out here by the scariest sword I think I've ever seen. Bassi as well takes some damage, not enough to go down, as the lobby gets winnowed further and further down.
Yeah, so you could see there that even though you hit the Rammus 3, even though you had the double trouble, it's the best comp, it's the S tier comp. You were playing it contested. It always comes at a price, and in this case, the price was a sixth place.
Yeah, and again, like that is part of those considerations they have to make when you want to play one of these highly contested comps. Like we said, I really do like picking up those lesser Nikos in this spot. Still gives me anxiety, like I was talking about before, but it is still something that's able to at least get you off the ground and really ease off some of that worry about you have about contention at the end of the day. For now, though, let's look at how some of these items are being pivoted around now that we've seen the Seraphine picked up. And I was actually getting ready to say I think we're going to see a double Warmog on the Seraphine, but just the one for now should be fine to get that damage really pumping.
You can always use a remover if you're able to make it to stage 6 to get that double Warmog on the Seraphine here. And once again, we're seeing some anti-Akali positioning. Trying to not get sniped by the backline. Cycle into Stokes Yumi.
Again,
And we
we
saw
haven't
this earlier.
seen.
The item slams, the shred and the thunder on the Mals, the full damage on the Yumi, Radiant Warmogs on Leona. It might just be a little bit too much. And Bassi takes the 5th place as Stoke and the other 3 competitors top 4.
Yeah, Eric takes a loss at the top here, but they have the HP pool. That means it's not as important to them right now. And further, like you said, Stoke has to be feeling pretty good about this right now. Is rocking this full 5 Prodigy, already has their Seraphine too. The only thing that you could maybe critique is the fact that they haven't tried to gone for the Mage on the Seraphine, but the Cat does seem like it's a little bit more consistent damage right now, all things considered, with that TG on the Sarah.
Yeah, you would definitely keep bullet hell on Yumi. Yumi is going to be doing the primary damage, especially because, as you mentioned earlier, Yumi has that true damage, which ramps up as the fight goes on. Cycle into Eric here. Eric did lose his previous fight.
Yeah, but overall things are still looking pretty kind for Eric. Mundo does start to fall off here and there, but they have the resistances to get through some of the damage, yet not all of the damage that is being dished out by Stoke. Mundo proudly charges in and then proudly falls just a few seconds later. So nothing too much that they have left in the tank there, but they could still find a way to position here, there, everywhere to stay alive a little longer. You need to see them try to hold on to their gold to see if there's a trick that can get them into level 9 and into a top 3.
That being said, even if you are Eric in this spot, you can't be that upset. You took the Mundo Hero augment. You're probably looking at a third, maybe a second, if you get a very nice level 9, and that's nothing to be upset about in a position
No.
where when you take that augment, right?
Yeah,
You
it's
you
that
take it
middle of the pack.
expecting the third place.
Yeah, it's that middle of the map meat shot that I was talking about. You want to try to find these ways to get these good wins early on in the tournament so that way you can make these cutoffs without going for these crazy first rate plays that can backfire and send you down, down, down. This is exactly what Eric needs right now, too, just because they came out of first game one with an 8. So they're trying to do everything they can to make up for that point total in game two. Edging towards the second and first, excuse me, would be that best case scenario to try to keep things going. That being said, starting things off at this lower level here wouldn't be too bad to then try to really swing for the fences, go back to that first race style in game three to try to cinch it up. But before I talk about a game three, we still got a game two to wrap up here. We've been talking so much about the Akali positioning, yet I've been focusing more so on the the Kaisa positioning that's been kind of coming on here. Doing a great job, honestly, fight after fight, ensuring that she is able to really go on some of these high threat targets. But here, it isn't really gonna be enough. The Mundo is able to
I don't
find
know
a way
about
to
that.
snipe
I
her
think Mundo's
down.
got
The
it.
Jinx is doing everything she can, and it's not gonna be enough. The Mundo too tanky off the Tankzilla.
Yeah, Eric was able to find a Braum on the roll down, which gives you four Lucha, which is a huge cap in this comp. That's like the final spike. That's the nail in the coffin that you really need to push for that second place, maybe even that first place if you can get Braum too. I will say something very smart that Fist did
I
is
mean, do you
normally
want me to
you
really
think
quickly call out the Yumi free potential, or do you want to? Because right now we're seeing a
oh,
lot of holds happening. We're seeing a final call right now from Stoke, trying to see whatever they can find. And unfortunately, no gas left in the tank, down to 0 gold. They have to go against Fist without too much left to their name. This Prodigy board has lasted them for so long, but now it's Fist looking to try to see if they can be the final nail in the coffin. Here comes the first Seraphine orb, finds its way to that backline, but doesn't have enough follow-up damage to really land anything true. Over there on the other side, you can see the Braum finding his way to that backline once more. Wait a minute, there's another Seraphine ball. Stokes is able to survive that little bit longer. Eric also takes more damage. There's Demi staying alive as well. This is all getting closer and closer to that middle
oh,
of the
and one
pack.
Yumi
And there's another
away.
Yumi.
Oh,
The Yumi free is in the shop. They gotta look for a sale
oh
somewhere, and it
wow.
doesn't matter what goes down. Here comes the Golden Cat, completely reversing Stokes' fortunes.
What a find for Stoke. Oh, Yumi out of the first job, one roll, hits the other Yumi. And I don't think anything in this lobby is strong enough to be able to defeat the Yumi 3. I think it might be curtains.
This is heartbreaking, by the way, if you're Eric. You've had the HP to be able to stand through so many threats. I don't think 18 HP on a particularly bad loss for Yumi free is going to be enough. The only saving grace might be the fact that Stokes has to play 8 units on 9, so there's one less unit doing damage on this board. Let's watch this initial cast. Look at that front line absolutely melt. There's nothing left.
What front
Cat goes
line?
through one after the other. Pages are being turned over and over. Mundo dies before he hits the ground, and Stokes is able to take Eric down from 18 all the way to 0.
What a turn of events. What a turn of events. So what does this have in the tank? What's the out now? That's what you have to be thinking. You have to be thinking, how could I somehow defeat Yumi 3? And the only way you can defeat a 3-star 4 cost is a 3-star 5 cost.
Hmm. I would say there's
I'm
also
just
more of a free star 4 cost to your own, but no, you're right. Free star 5 cost. Let's keep the narrative
3-star
going
5 cost.
pretty cool. But also, we'll have to see if there's even a direction that Fist has the economy to do, which I'm not seeing it here. They have been able to tempo pretty far and away off the back of this board, which isn't something you usually see on any kind of 2 cost reroll, but they've been able to command so much economy coming on through this entire game that they haven't had too many issues. I think with that, though, it is just going to be curtains for them as we get into this final fight coming on through. A few more shots happening here. Everything's trying to line up in front of the Yumi to really play bodyguard for the Zaya. But watch this. The true damage means nothing
Oh,
in the face
wow.
of these bastions. They're just going to be melting one at a time. There's nothing that can be done. The orb comes down, is able to find a few, but the cat does clean up once more. Game 2 is Stokes to win. Hello and welcome back to Game 3 of the Prismatic Poro Cup, our last game of the day, and that means that our players are playing for cuts. That only the top 4 from each of our lobbies 1 and 2 are going to be able to make it into day 2, and that means it's now time to leave it all out on the convergence.
Is it time for the coin flip?
I think it's time for the coin flip, and I have been told it is lobby A. So we are returning back to the initial lobby we saw at the beginning of the day, and I believe you had an update on Pineko, actually. Where are they at right now in the tournament?
Taneko won one of the first game that we saw,
Mhm, yeah, we saw that. Yeah,
with
as a
Juggernaut
fast
Fast
9,
9,
kind of crazy jugs board. Yeah.
and they won the second game with the exact same board. So Paneko is well above the rest of the competition with 16 points. The
That
closest
is a
person,
lot. That's a lot of
yeah.
deja
The
vu right there. Hell, I'm even thinking about some Jaro Jaro deja vu, but even then, Jaro Jaro was only able to go 1 and 2 in their first games during the lower elo side of the tournament, while meanwhile Paneco's gone 1 and 1, looking for the hat trick now at the end of the day so far. That also means that they basically secured their spot coming into day 2, so we'll have to see how the rest of the lobby is looking to stick around through all of that. But for now, though, I really got to ask you at this point, this is the same lobby that we viewed at the beginning of game 1. They have now seen Pineko go Fast 9 Juggernauts once, Fast 9 Juggernauts twice. What do you think's going to happen in game 3 to try to gum up those works?
I could see Pan going Fast 9 again, but again,
Hmm?
it's difficult to force Fast 9 every game. Fast 9 comes to you. If you get the bows early, or if you have the win streak spot, or you have the crazy loot streak spot, then you can Fast 9. But there's some moments where that's just not in the cards, and you're gonna have to play something else. So part of it is pan piling these lines properly and being able to take a spot that could be a Fast 9 into a first, and part of it is being able to even have that spot in the first place.
Yeah, we'll see exactly where they'll come through. And I agree. It is always difficult to like force it, but I don't know. Kaneko's been finding that kind of path through, so we'll have to find out as time goes on. Are there any other compositions that you would sort of expect to see to kind of come on through though? Because we're talking about the moonshot right now. What's old reliable that you want to look for?
Old, reliable. We
Hmm.
haven't seen I mean, the only, like, win streak crazy win spot because like, if we think about it, Pan has gone 1-1, but we just saw a Yumi 3 last game in the other lobby. Pan hasn't ran into somebody with that Yumi 3, with that 4-star 3 cost or 3-star 4 cost, 3-star 5 cost that will Exodia the entire lobby. So, playing from tempo into that is something I love to see.
Yeah, I completely agree. And we'll have to see if there are any other interesting compositions that are going to kind of wiggle their way on through. I believe right now we are having a couple of technical difficulties, so we're just going to take a little bit of a pause here and just start focusing back in on some of the meta points that we're expecting to see in here. And I just want to talk to you a little more broadly. So you were just talking about a pretty underutilized comp, at least in this tournament right now. Is there any other compositions that you kind of wanted to see? Because I know you talked a little bit about the Katarina as well, just to sort of say, hey, this is something that's really cool, but we haven't seen too many people really force it in the same way. Where else are you kind of looking?
I mean, there's a couple of niche things that you could see. We still haven't seen any Star Guardians at all. Generally, if you have an AD spot, a couple patches ago, it was very prevalent. Now it's still strong. You go Jinx 2, Poppy 2, Cassante 2, and with certain power augments, Keepers is a big one, uh,
Mhm.
and a win streak, you can really snowball with that. You can really put a lot of pressure and get that top 3, that top 2. There's
Yeah,
also
I
the
could.
other Fast 9 with
Mhm.
Varus and Cassante,
Oh,
which
that's a
was very
huge one,
prevalent
yeah.
earlier on in the set, and it's kind of fallen off. So maybe if somebody ends up hitting TF and Varus instead of hitting TF and Zyra and Lee Sin, let's say you can't hit the Lee Sin, you can't hit the Braum, maybe you pivot towards that angle.
Yeah, I completely agree, and that's actually a really cool call out there because that was the original 5 cost, like, Exodia board that we saw folks going for, right? Like, folks were trying to find these ways to play sniper. We would see all these crazy plays happen in general off of the back of the Varus, and then all of a sudden people sort of realized, hey, there's this really cool just synergy between the Twisted Fate and the Zyra, and they just started shipping them all over the place, which honestly, I'm all in favor of. I've been through the arcane shipping wars as much as the next person has, but it really has been effective for building strong comps in TFT.
I think that one of the big reasons as to why TF has shut up is because of Noxus Trap.
Yeah.
Originally, the Varus would be your primary damage dealer, and TF would have his utility. TF would have the Giant Slayer or the Shred or the Thunder. But now with Noxus Trap, you can build TF full damage, you can build Zyra full damage, and you can have a much more stable front line with win streaking it with either Bastions or with Juggernauts based on what you hit.
Yeah, and just definitely, I completely agree there because you get so much item power just from that one power up, right? Like, don't get me
Oh,
wrong, there are other strong power ups for Twisted Fate. Ramping Rage is the one that I like pointing out quite a bit, but they don't really impact TF in the same way, where all of a sudden you're basically giving Twisted Fate 3 extra items. You're giving him the 3 Shred, the
yeah.
3 Sunder, the third thing that isn't
Burn.
coming to right now, the burn that comes on through. Thank you so much. That is crazy to see. Just like this prismatic start opening up in this lobby with the prismatic prelude portal locked in.
Level up is a choice here. Going long, Pandora's opt to take level up here for Ride. Could maybe even play Kale.
Oh, I
Bensil build a butted into a Garen 3.
Yeah, I gotta say, I really like that quite a bit, honestly. Gives you some power. You're able to go for this Katarina as well. Even get the over 9,000 on the cat, which feels pretty good, all things considered, when you're trying to be able to really build up that cat reroll line that we were talking about before. It just really is going to become a question, like we were talking about on the Kaisa earlier. Are you able to hit strong over 9,000 buffs? And are you going to be contested by the other players in this lobby? Tomafi also looking to play Katarina and already has a couple of items to show for it.
Yeah, generally with this Katarina, you really want to have those items to slam. Build a bud is very nice, especially out of Prismatic Destiny, right? You have this extra gold for this econ, which is so big on 2-1, and you have a 3-star one cost for the win streak. Personally, if I saw someone else even considering angling Katarina, I wouldn't even attempt Katarina in this spot. I would say, all right, I'm going to play her on Garen. I'm either going to play Zaya Bastions and Fast 9, or I'm going to play some other type of win streaking line. And we can see Ben doing just that and selling the Katarina and looking for a power up on the 3-star Garen, which makes perfect
Yeah,
sense.
I think this makes sense to me as well. And I think we'll also get a good idea of where things are going. If it's just going to be an early game streak, I think Spiky Shell or Body Change is a strong idea. But if they're going to be looking to go for something a little bit crazier, like trying to say a full on Prodigy board later on, I feel like it would have been that 4-star option. But instead, we are just going to be going for that Spiky Shell. Works great in so many of the physical damage heavy lot boards that you see in Stage 2. This is going to really guarantee Benesil to get this early game win streak.
Yes. So this is what I said, where Fast 9 isn't something you can always play. Fast 9 is something that's given to you. Load it in and have the board for Fast 9. We hype over to Wide Arc here, and very different situation. When Living Forge has Chains and then a Shojin slammed on Azaya, maybe could play Star Guardians. We really don't know at the moment. There's not
I gotta
enough
say,
information.
and I gotta say, like, that sounds really okay though, right? Because Living Forge is an amazing augment because of just the sheer number of artifacts that it gives you. And the fact that you have so many units that are really just completely transformed by an artifact means that you get multiple options and opportunities to get all of that stuff. Hey, are you, for example, trying to dig so hard in order to get the one that reduces your mana cost over and over and over again? Congratulations, you now have at least 2 free shots at trying to get that at the end of the day, and you're probably going to be hitting some powerful options along the way as well. So, all in all, you might take a couple of early game losses. That's fine. It's not about the HP you lose, it's about what you spend with the gold you get from it. That's going to be an interesting thing to watch. I can't wait to see what White Arp does with it.
Yes, a big thing with the Chosen Slam, the artifacts and everything that's in that position is Kog'Maw. Kog'Maw like Thatchiv, Kog'Maw like Lichbane, Kog'Maw like Dawncore, which is the artifact you were talking about. Kog'Maw
I
has a
agree.
variety of artifacts that are very strong on it. So if you can get any of those, and again, you have multiple chances, like you said, all of a sudden you have a direction, which is very hard for other people to contest because in order to really play Kog'Maw to its fullest potential, you need those artifacts.
Hmm. As you said, there are plenty of other options too. Star Guardian has plenty of good holders, and with some of these slams that White Arp is going for, that can go into the Jinx. It could even flex over to the Samira if you would like to make such a choice. But for now, though, just going to be trying to do whatever they can to not lose some of these early fights quite as hard as they might have to worry about. Over on the other
Yeah.
side of the convergence, though, Wisp looks like they managed to spike up a Radiant item, max attack Radiant Ginsu's going into this Gnar. For a second there, I was afraid we were going to see like a gold generating option like the Golden Blade, where you're just getting
Oh,
so much
Golden
free
Edge,
econ,
yes.
Golden Edge, like over and over again. But honestly, going for a more damaged Gnar option, and that is going to be really dangerous. Look at how much raw attack damage you're getting out of this. I don't really think reroll Gnar is a real thing at the end of the day, but it certainly is going to be real enough to help you get a couple of
What
good,
a
strong
shot
wins
for
here.
Wisp. Look at
Oh
this.
yeah, look at that.
Zaya 2, natural. Wow, what a job.
Doesn't even let me finish my little Gnar joke. How dare you?
Hey, when big moments happen, you got to call them out. And this is a
I know,
very
I
big
know,
moment.
I know. But
You
listen,
would be
listen.
very happy to get
Comedy.
this on stage 3
Oh,
2.
for sure,
It's
for
2
sure.
6.
Yeah, comedy always comes first, but Wisp does definitely deserve a bit of a say. The other thing, oh, this is a big one. Basaya, they managed to get that Crystal Gambit emblem, doing everything they can to guarantee that loss streak. This is something that I am really curious about because I have been very, very skeptical about it, and our last lobby has really proven me wrong. There is still plenty of room for Crystal Gambit to work. I'm very anxious because we already see Basaya on 71 HP going into the Krug round. That is very low. It means they have basically taken full major losses, fight after fight after fight. But we're going to have to see how they're able to make use of these benefits as they come on through. I'm going to expect at least one double down, probably two. It's just going to be a question of how they're able to manage their HP through all of that.
Well, we've already seen one double down. 5 losses means you've doubled down once, assuming it was in
Mhm.
on 2-1, which means that now the decision of would you double down again or would you take the 6 loss catch out and call it a day? Considering you have Emblem in this spot, I would be surprised if you don't double down again. That
Mhm.
being said, I'm not playing the game right now.
Yeah, and that's honestly a really good point to remember. Like, we have the benefit of being able to get this like bird's eye view. We are not tunneled on our own board, and we get to get quick little scouting to see what's happening with everyone else. That said, though, I agree. Like, I think this is a spot where, with the emblem especially, you want to double down just because when you have the emblem, you're able to actually really nicely control your loss streaks with it. Where if you are afraid that you're too strong and you might win, especially if you stay at this free Crystal Gambit level, you could just, pop out the emblem, only throw it on when the loss is guaranteed. So that way, if you win, cool, you win. If you lose, though, you're able to continue the loss streak like nothing happened. So that should be enough. And based on the fact that we haven't seen a slam just yet, I think that's probably what Basea is considering. Nope. They're going to be able to go on in and see if they can hold on to this. But this is still looking very, very weak.
but that's the entire intention. You want it to look weak. I mean, you would love for it to be a very close fight, a one-unit loss, but you would losing your cash out in that position would lose you the entire game. So you
Mm.
have to make sure you lose this fight.
I agree that you have to, but again, I look at these damage numbers, I look at the losses here. 71 already takes us down to 61, 10 HP at the start of stage 3. This is already looking like a number that I'd want to see going into the Wolf round. So I'm very anxious about this, but that said, Bisea, she has a cool head about her. She's been in plenty of these situations, both on the rank ladder and other tournaments around the block. If there's anyone who knows how to pilot this, it is going to be her.
Not able to tell if she cashed out or not.
Believe she did, but
Interesting
we'll have to
augment
see
choice
after the
here.
gold augment.
Oh, she did, and she got a Zaya too. That's huge.
A lot of
Because
that
look at
going
your items
around the
here.
Zaya too.
A lot of it. You have Kraken Ginsu, and you could set this up very nicely to get a 5 crystalline, maybe start farming some components in a couple of rounds.
Yeah, I really like this play actually because again, I think a lot of folks when they have that Crystal Gambit loss streak going, they want to do everything they can to double down to really get those big YouTube hype reel moments. And while I know Kate is definitely looking for clips to Twitch clip in order to get things going, you don't always need to go for those big crazy swings to the fences. Sometimes you quit while you're ahead.
You don't need the 270, 300 cash out. This is more than enough to be able to win a couple fights. And the resources that you're going to get are going to be from the 5 crystal caches with the axe.
Yeah, certainly makes sense to me. By the way, of all the things that we talked about so far, we haven't yet touched on what Aikio has done on her board just yet, and that is going to be the protagonist option coming in on the cannon. And I gotta say, this is one of these options that I am a huge fan of. Every time a new set is launched, there's always one trait, one prismatic, one something that I read it and I freak out because of how crazy I think it is. And for me, protagonist was the one of this set. I love this mechanic. I love the idea of really bringing you an easy way to get access to that hero augment. And just generally, I think it's really, really fun. That said, though, despite the fact that this is rated highly among players, all of these protagonists are created equally, and I don't think Kennen is considered to be one of the best options.
So a couple patches ago, when protagonist instantly gave you the 2-star and there wasn't a bit of a wait, you could very, very quickly snowball out of control. But after the nerf a few patches ago, protagonist became a much worse click. And I do believe that you're correct. Kennen is not one of the best hero augments. Peneko's Kog'Maw cleaned it up very nicely right there.
Yeah. That said, a hero augment is better than no hero augments at the end of the day. So we'll still have to keep an eye on that if they're going to be trying to go for that full 4 cost or if it's going to become econ fodder. We'll have to see though. Overall, looking at this lobby, we are starting to see gaps happening here, there, and everywhere. Whisk as well as Bensil sitting at the top 95 and 92 with Whisk streaking. Meanwhile, you're starting to see our initial gaps beginning to form. Paneko is a little bit further behind in third, and that's where you get our big remaining group here as everyone else is in the 70s and 60s.
I don't know if you saw earlier when we were on Peneko's board, and I mentioned how important it was to get those artifacts on Kog'Maw.
Mhm.
But not only did Peneko take Living Forge, but he also took uh or artifact like Living Forge, but he also took Portable Forge to have as many chances as possible to get those Kog'Maw artifacts. And lo and
Yeah,
behold, that gave us one of those artifacts, and it paid off.
Yeah, I gotta say, this is really exciting. And Kog'Maw, I think, is one of these last remaining units in the set that have these huge, crazy transformative options coming in for their artifacts. Like, we had previously spoken about Ori way back in the day, and she was so strong with Luden's Echo that the artifact was actually fully removed from the game. And Kog'Maw, as you were saying earlier, it has this one, it has Dawn Core that really turned this into almost feeling like a 5 cost unit in and of itself. They still have more options coming in through that living forward, so we'll have to keep an eye on Paneko as these games go further and further in. But for now, this is just a Kog'Maw 1. Whisk is able to continue their win streak pretty easily off the back of it.
Yeah, this is Whisk's lobby at the moment. You saw that orb flying across the screen. That is a Crystal Gambit cash out orb.
Hmm.
Regardless, we're back on Whisk's board here. And you can see the Zaya 2. This is looking like it might be a bit of a Star Guardian spot. You have the Cassante 1, you have the Nico 2. All of the pieces for a Star Guardian setup. However, maybe you don't. Maybe you decide, I'm not going to play for this. I'm going to play for a Fast 9.
Can you talk to me a little bit more about that Star Guardian board? Because this is something that came up quite a bit yesterday when we were talking about Soul Fighter, where in the initial days of the set, we saw a huge emphasis on going for the full vertical, trying to play the full 8 units and go for that prismatic trait. But folks have slowly started picking away and saying, well, wait, I don't actually need this unit over here. I can sub it out for this. What is the quote unquote perfect Star Guardian board now, or the classic Star Guardian board right now?
So generally, you want to run all of the Star Guardian units besides, this is very late game. You cut Ari, and I have to look at all of them off the top of my head. You don't cut Syndra. You cut Ari and maybe Syndra. And on level 9, you run Cassante, you run Kabuko, and you run Braum if you could fit the Braum. But that's super late game. And then and you could even run Varus. A couple patches ago, when Varus was very strong, you ran Varus.
That's true.
People
Yeah.
realize that the way Star Guardian works is the percentage bonuses you get in the later stages. You would rather run a stronger unit than get that extra bump of percentage. When Soul Fighter is very different. Soul Fighter, if you want to get 8 Soul Fighter ASAP, at least on stage 4. Maybe on stage 5, you have a 2-star Braum, you have a 2-star Lee Sin. Maybe I can make some cuts here and there. But you really
Well,
want to have 8 Soul Fighter in. That's where
well,
they're different.
Well, really quickly, just switching over to Ride's board, who has definitely found a few strong options, already at level 8, spent in their gold well, hits the Twisted Fate, and honestly has some pretty good itemization options on their bench. Ginsu goes down. We're probably also going to see, yep, the Hodge as well, excuse me, the Spear of Shojin as well as the Jeweled Gauntlet. So this is starting to look pretty dangerous here. And whenever you get Twisted Fate this early, it means you're going to have an easy time beginning to really stack up all of these benefits that are going to be coming in from his Rogue Captain trait.
Wheels into Bencel, and you can see Bencel's doing exactly what was stated before. You win streak those first couple stages, and now look at the augment that was taken on 3-2. Forward thinking. So you win streak, and then once you get to that part where you feel like you're going to level off, you lose streak it. And now Bencel's going to have not only a crystal cash out, but a forward thinking cash out coming in, which means they're going right to 9.
Yeah, I want to make sure we take a look at that, but let's see what the augments are here first. It's another Prismatic. Great way to close out the day here at the Prismatic Poro Cup. And honestly, some pretty good options in general, right? I think Waterlow's will be pretty exciting here for that Twisted Fate, gives him a little bit of extra mana generation support, but you can also make your way through a bunch of different options here whenever you play all this eclectic combinations of these 5 cost units.
I'd have to see the spot. Radiant Refractor is really nice here.
Oh,
Radiant
for
Ginsu
sure.
is phenomenal. Or Radiant Shojin. They're both very nice pickups.
Yeah, it looks like the Ginsu is going to be the
Those are the
name of
Radiant
the game.
Ginsus.
Yeah. Which honestly, I like that quite a bit considering the fact that you already have Noxious Trap picked up here. You're getting more cards out on the field. They're going to bounce to more targets that are going to spread more debuffs overall. So I think that just feels like a pretty good match here. And we're going to get to see how it's going to go against Pineko, who still doesn't have that many of the Kog'Maws just yet, still sitting on the 6, but is really starting to stack up all of those artifacts.
Yes, 3 artifacts here for Pineko. Sadly, nothing phenomenal on the tank artifact side, but Kog'Maw alone should be able to do more than enough damage to clean up this Fast 9 board.
Look at
Oh,
how
maybe
much
not.
that
Maybe
Twisted
I
Fate
spoke
is
too
taking.
soon.
I mean, I don't know. Look, this Xin Zhao is getting really huge off the back of that Talisman of Ascension. It is only going to be going against a tiny little bit of a Teemo tome right there, but the train W, well, tanky, can't really do anything else.
Yeah, once your a Talisman of Ascension unit has ascended, the fight's probably over.
Hmm.
Thomasy here, 1 Katarina away, multiple recons, and this is the positioning I mentioned earlier. I was mentioning there's some positioning was unstoppable. This is the positioning that you opt for. You kind of block your Rakan off, and you'd be like, why would I block Rakan off? Like that doesn't make any sense. And the thought process is unstoppable. They have to charge to the new target, right? And if the new target is through the units, Rakan's going to charge through the Jace and the Akali. You'll see it in this fight right here.
Hmm. By the way, looking at all these artifacts that are still on the bench right now, to me that says they got called to chaos for Hull Crusher and said, nope, I don't want that. Let's just see if I get free good artifacts. Double Blighting Jewel doesn't really feel super great, but there is going to be a few different options that can maybe make that work. And I got to cut myself off here because I see an egg, and I'm a very simple man. I don't know if you know this
Ooh.
about me, J-Maz, but if I see an egg, that is my hero. That is who I want to win. I want the egg player to go infinite because if you have the egg to go egg, you deserve the egg. You know what I mean? Like you got the egg for the egg for the egg.
I get what you're saying. I used to be an egg truther, but it feels so bad sometimes. It feels
I'm not
so
saying it
bad.
feels
You're
good or
down to
feels bad.
prismatic.
I'm saying it feels egg.
Okay, I can agree with you on that one. It
Yeah.
definitely feels egg. Let's see what the what with an egg decides to take here off of carousel. Cloak gets robbed, ends up picking a Kier.
Yeah, feels like a decent enough option, but let's switch things back over to Visaya, who, again, have now looked to cash out a few times, has a few pretty good options at their disposal as well. I'd see the Radiant Kraken Slayer joined by a regular one on this Ashe. Still only a 1-star, though, as are a few of these other really big hits you would want to see. I'm feeling a little nervous, honestly, if I'm Bisea here. There's still so much you want to do, but I'm not sure if you have the economy to deal with it, especially if you're eyeing down some of the folks that you're getting ready to go up against, and Ride is certainly one of these big threats.
Yes. You have to feel very, very antsy at 15 in this spot, but at the same time, you have K'Sante 2, you have Lee Sin, you have 7 Crystal in. You got to just hope it's enough for a couple rounds until you find that Ash 2. I do like the fact that the saying, you know what, I'd rather make 10 or have 10 interest and not greedily roll to 0 trying to find an Ash. I think that's very, very smart conservative play. You kind of hedging your bets.
Completely agree. That does, however, mean that now Ride, after that loss, is now going to be in our lower pole position. So they're going to need to certainly roll to 0 to try to find something. And instead, they just find themselves in the land of pairs all over the place here. They're going to have to try to start selling a couple of them to go for some of the bigger hits. But I don't know. If I'm ever in this position where I have 6 pairs on my bench, I don't feel good anymore.
Looking very difficult here. Ride ends up fighting Akio. He now has her 10 and 3, but still very far away from 10 and 4. Will it be enough though? TF is doing a good bit of damage.
Cannon is able to find some really good snipes into that backline over and over, so it does help through some of these fights, and it seems like it will be enough for this one. Look at that double shuriken going right down at the last second. Ride down to 2 HP, has one more chance to get these pairs finally starred up between both the creep round and the main round. We'll have to keep an eye on those star messages that come on the right side of our screen as we move over to Bensil, who is looking pretty good here. Was able to play quite a bit off this Garen as a tank and is now just trying to look for that classic Seraphine position where you try to go mage with as much mana generation as possible to get those orbs going out as quickly as you can.
Yes, and has right now an Ashe, which will be holding items for the TF in the future. And you can see that Bensil and Ride are playing the exact same comp. So Bensil here is not only rooting for Ride to get eliminated because, you know, one last person's out of the bracket, but also because it makes hitting units like that Seraphine 2 way easier. Finds the
Yeah, they,
TF, itemizes the TF. Bensil's in a great spot here.
yeah, they even have the fruit to try to go a little bit more for the specifics that they want. One more shot. Will they get the Noxious Trap? They have
We'll get
one
after
more
this.
shot. Sorry about that. I know how to count, and it
Mm,
will
not
not
able to
be the
get it here.
case. Soul Chipper, that's a great consolation prize. It's able to shred up so much of the damage you'd have to deal with for your Seraphine. But look at the other side. Peneko has finally managed to hit their Kog'Maw 3. They haven't found any other crazy Dawncore item just yet, but this is going to be a lot to help them shred through and start dealing with the backline. Here comes the first shots coming in from the Seraphine. The front line is just gone. There's nothing to protect the Kog'Maw
Not
anymore
enough.
as the Jin Zhao goes down. Peneko is going to take a loss here. That is going to be a valiant effort by the Cog, but it's not enough for them to stay in the fight.
And nobody got eliminated. Both Ride and Beha were able to win their fight. So we're still at an 8-person lobby.
Yeah, Ride, by the way, was just able to clear out one of their pairs, able to get the Braum too. So that feels pretty good. I don't think any amount of Poros stage 5 onward, however, are going to be able to save Ride's life. So still effectively 2 HP in a dream. But hey, dreams are made of this, and we can see where they can go from there.
Where else would someone dream besides the Prismatic Poro Cup?
Hey, I believe it. We also get to see Peneko just, sneaking in again, saying hello, trying for a second bite at the elimination apple.
I do like what Peneko's doing, and this is very unorthodox. You see Kog'Maw. Kog'Maw normally builds Shojin, Archangel, Ginsu. And you think, why is there a Quicksilver on that Kog'Maw? Like, he's not getting CC'd. That's not happening. Well, it turns out Quicksilver actually scales attack speed for the first 18 seconds. So, Peneko's using that Quicksilver kind of like a mini Ginsu.
Really
Obviously, you'd
that.
rather have a different item, but it allows you to at least have some amount of item economy.
By the way, we have to call out the fact that Leona lasted for a million years, right? Like, the Ascension coming in there from the Talisman was excellent, but the time that was able to buy for Ride means that they're able to two-star another one of these 5 costs. Again, every minute they stay alive is another minute they have to hit. It's just going to be a question of where they're able to go from here, and certainly hitting the mage is a huge boon right now. They just
Huge.
need to make sure the Seraphine can stay alive long enough in order to cast it. Look at, oh, by the way, too, look at the rest of this lobby. It is really narrowing down. 2, 4, 9
Yes.
is the bottom 3. 15, Basaya only slightly ahead. This is really getting down to the wire.
This is a battle of the Bastions. I do not know if Benzel was able to hit Mage, but I think maybe the item difference alone might be too much. Ooh, that's a big cast, though.
Mage comes through twice. However,
He
the
is
Twisted
down.
Fate
That's
goes
a kill.
down.
I think Ride got it.
Yeah, Whisk is
Ride
actually our
ends up
first to
taking
go
the win.
down. Tomathy follows down even further in 8th place. Ride is able to continue sneaking along. Basaya is now win streaking. So things are looking pretty solid here at the bottom half of the lobby. While meanwhile, some of the folks that we've been seeing towards the top, Peneko are first into first, now bleeding HP round after round, trying to see if they could still salvage a top 4. Darp, who has been pretty consistent at the top of this lobby. I want to actually check in on them in a little bit just to see where they're at right now to revisit this composition. They are doing everything they can to stay into the Star Guardian comp, but folks are beginning to really outscale them, and they're also stealing all of their Seraphines. It's not very polite.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yes. There's 6, there was 6 Seraphines out of the board. Makes it very difficult for you to hit your Seraphines. Darp
Yeah.
is still in first, does have some HP to bleed. And you have to think, Rye was at 2 HP, is now was almost at an 8th, now at 6. Was very lucky that they didn't cycle into Beha and take all that damage.
It does help for now. It does hurt that you're also only running the Jinx 1, but these rockets are doing plenty of damage on these initial blasts. But take a look at how
I don't
easy
think it's enough.
Seraphine is able to tear through the rest of everything here. Again, no one is getting eliminated just yet. Darp has plenty of HP at their disposal, and we're even seeing the bottom 2, Ride and Basaya, continuing to win. So the HP is going to be able to continue DARP on further. It's just going to be a question of how much further they can go. And speaking of that, look at how Basaya is upgrading her board right now. Just hit a Lee Sin 2, is completely ignoring all the Seraphines that everyone else has gone for, and instead going for this more classic compositional start that we see for these Crystal Gambit boards, trying to play the Zyra and the Lee Sin.
And I'm very interested to see if Bisaya ends up fighting Ride, because that is that's the class of the Titans there. Generally, one person will kill the other in that position. Ends up fighting Akio here, and decided to sell the extra copies of Kennen on the bench and look for a Nico 3. Also was able to hit Janna 3, but in a 7 crystal spot like this, everything's capped out. I'd be very surprised if anyone's able to take down this board.
Yeah, it's that econ that I'm always a fan of personally here. And again, if you are able to go for that Kennen for 4, awesome. I think it's a huge power spike. But if you are worried about that, if you're saying, hey, I'm doing the numbers, I wasn't able to hit my Kennen free as early as I would have liked to, all of a sudden, Protagonist just becomes an extra +1 gold every round, and you try to do what you can do from there. Meanwhile, though, it seems like Basaya and Ride are being split apart a little bit here. Benesil, as well as their sorry about that. I have no idea what happened to my voice there. Akio have both now come between them, 13 HP and 9 respectively. Now that we're here at the creep round, this lobby is looking like it's now in spitting distance of each other, with the bottom being 2 HP for Ride, with Darp holding on at 18. We've already seen how in stage 6, 18 HP could be just as much as 1. This is going to be a crazy couple of rounds to watch.
Yeah, especially because the top 4 of this or the top 4 overall, make it into the final day. This is the final game of today. So people that are really fighting for those placements, this is where it's make or break. And a huge pickup here for Benzel, getting that TF2. Now the board is finally fully itemized. The Braum 2 with items, the Seraphine 2 with items, the TF with items. You finally hit Noxus crap on your TF. You could not be happier.
Yeah, all of this works together really nicely. You still do have that anti-heal on the Braum, but you're going to take that off now. You don't need that on him anymore. Just get a bit more damage. Here they are going to be going here against Kari as well. This is going to be one of these situations that Benesil has been trying to avoid. Again, I'm sorry, trying to find. They're trying to see if there's any way they can sneak through some of these win streakers that we've been seeing on this board, and I think they've been able to find it. This is not going to be that 4-star. Kennen is not going to have enough gas left in the tank. They're going to go down. But Basaya goes down as well. They're now on the outside looking in at the top 4 as Pineko and Ride are still fighting it out.
I'm very surprised Basaya lost to Wide Arp there. I was not expecting that. I'm curious. I mean, I see the Jinx too. I see the Seraphine with Zhonya's. Ooh. And Pineko picked up a Wit's End on the Kog'Maw. Remember, you get an artifact anvil every 10 combat rounds. So on 6-1, you got another artifact anvil, another chance of getting a great artifact. And the Wit's End right there happens to be the artifact in this situation.
Absolutely.
Everyone here has top forward. Now it's a fight for first place.
Absolutely horrifying to see if you're going against Pineko. Again, doing everything that he can to try to go for that first place in a row. Darp, though, is finally starting to come online. Look at that. They were able to find a Seraphine of their own, now holding onto that Zhonya's Hourglass to really be able to guarantee some of these casts. But look at how the Kog'Maw is able to spread this damage out here. Each of those bolts coming in from the Static Shiv are doing plenty of work, but I don't think it's going to be enough. There's so much focus already on them, and the last little bits of damage will cause them to go down. Ride, however, also is going to go down to 0, so Pineko in 4th. Ride will not have enough to keep on keeping on, and instead it's Darp and Benesil, slow but steady, will win this race.
But as I was saying before, Rye could have easily cycled into Bazeha the exact moment that he had the board but didn't have everything he needed, and he got very lucky to avoid Bazeha for basically the entire entirety of stage 5, most of stage 6, and squeak out with 3rd place.
It's enough for a fur, but now we have to see who gets the first. Again, we talk so much about these crazy high cap boards. We have 5 costs. Could good old fashioned Star Guardians win the day? Seraphine has switched sides, turned coats over to Benicil. Here comes these initial casts that we talked about. They land true. The static, the golden is going to be able to work for the Seraphine, but
And
it's not going to
Poppy,
be enough. That was a bit of stun there. Twisted Fate doesn't have enough. Benicil, though, actually does. 4 HP left. Here comes the carousel.
I'm curious what you want on Carousel here. I have to look at their boards to really know.
I personally
I don't
like the
believe either of them
Warmogs.
need burn, so you probably go tank item.
Yeah, I personally like Warmogs personally in a lot of these situations. Darp, however, I like getting a little bit of that extra magic shred. You don't really have too
Ooh,
much of that as an option right
but
now,
Shred
so
is
that could be the
great on
missing link
Zaya.
right now.
I'm also surprised Darp isn't rolling here. I mean, I guess what are you rolling for? But you never know. You can maybe hit a Seraphine too. You can get lucky. It's
Yeah,
possible.
Remember, Darp is still holding onto those Saras, so quite a few are out of the pool, but everyone else has now perished. Sorry. So we might be able to see if they are able to find a few more options here, there, anywhere. For now, though, here comes this final fight. Like last time before, we are seeing the Seraphine watch it throughout all this happening. The Zonia's Hourglass for Darp side should be enough to keep her alive, despite the fact that they're being the lower starred one. So we're going to see what else it's able to hit. It seems like it's going to be a
That's
good chunk of
just
the board, but
huge.
1 into 2, that is just too much to stand at this point. The Twisted Fate is going to have to play cleanup duty right now, and that's all that they need to do. Darp is going to go down to 3 HP. Why do I keep thinking that
We're
this is
not
going to
done
be it?
yet. We're
We
not
got
done
more
yet.
TFT to play.
I'm very surprised neither of them are spending their money here. I mean, I guess what are you rolling for is the question, right?
Mm,
But I
like
feel like I'd rather spend my money than not spend it at all
I mean,
because
I
this
like
is the
clicking
final
the
fight of the
funny
game
reroll
every
button
time.
as much. Yeah, I mean, I love clicking the funny reroll button as much as the next guy, right? So I do kind of agree. Seeing this amount of money at the very end does hurt a little bit, especially when I know there isn't really a lot to kind of come back from for here. But hey, that also works. I also want to call out too, this Twisted Fate also has been rocking this Edge of Night, which means that there is another answer to some of this crazy splash damage that's been coming in from the opposing Seraphine, as well as the Jinx Rockets, who, by the way, look at that positioning, is trying to do everything that they can in order to move it towards that Twisted Fate as early as possible. It's going to be Darp Seraphine that casts first, however, that makes them perfectly clumped to go into these casts. Jinx is going to be able to stay alive. That actually might be all that's needed as the rocket goes wide. Twisted Fate gets pulled. Benicil goes down, and Darp takes the win.